And welcome to the Allen Americans podcast. And what an honor it is to have with me today one of the greatest goalies in Allen Americans history. What an unbelievable first year he had leading this club to the finals in the Central Hockey League President's Cup playoffs. The one and only number 83, Chris Whitley. How are you, buddy?
Tommy, doing pretty well, actually. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
It's awesome.
Haven't had an interview in a while, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. You and I bonded immediately. And a fun story about Witz, as he was known down in the locker room. Now, he didn't start out as the Allen American starting goalie, but he quickly took over after an injury to Charlie Effinger. He never gave up that position again. Talk about that first year coming to Allen, obviously your relationship with Bill McDonald, and how that all happened.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a weird situation. I know, like you said, coming out of university, Charlie had already played a year of pro, and he was. I mean, at the time, every coach is going to tell you you're going to have, you'll have a chance to start. But in my head, I already knew a guy that he'd played in the East Coast League for a year and was probably going to get the benefit of the doubt. But then, I remember I think it was James Hebert from the Brahmas ran Charlie over.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately I had to go in, but fortunately for me, it was that's the start of a career, right? A lot of guys, I've heard a lot of people almost have a similar situation where it's like you have an unfortunate injury or something, or an unfortunate circumstance, then you kind of go to take a run with it. But for me, it was good. Unfortunate for Charlie, and I obviously didn't feel bad about it. But it's the way hockey goes. Sometimes you gotta do what's best for the team, and fortunately enough, team kind of rallied around, and we had a pretty good run.
So did you. 31 wins in that first season, the Allen Americans in the 09-10 season. 31-10, Chris Whitley. That is very impressive, like numbers. What went well for you? Because here you are, you're a rookie coming in, and all of a sudden everything just fell into place for you.
Yeah, I think it was just the confidence of the team, a little bit of pressure to kind of keep it going. I mean, for me, it was an amazing year personally, but I mean, I think our team was it was just a fun team to play for, which I think really helped out. I mean, it was a group of guys that really not much veteran presence on the team. A lot of guys are around the same age, so we all got along. It was definitely, it was probably the most fun team I ever played for as a group of guys, because like I said, we really all got along at the rink and away from the rink. So I think that really helped out. And I mean, even, I guess personally, it was a pretty good year. I mean, I guess I couldn't really ask for anything more. And I think, to be honest, it was, I probably would have had a couple more wins if I didn't get called up to the American League. That's just
Lake Erie, right?
That's yeah. I was up in Lake Erie for a bit, so to be honest, I probably missed out on like 3 or 4 starts, which I think I probably would have led the league in wins that year. But it's one of those things where like the year as a whole, it was awesome, and it was like I said, it was definitely one of the most memorable years I ever had in hockey.
Yeah, it was definitely incredible, and again, those 31 wins only. Riley Gill has more in one season, the 14-15 year where he had 33. That's how impressive your record was that first season in Allen, which for an expansion team to go to the finals, I know maybe it's a little bit different than in the NHL, although what a run by the Vegas Golden Knights, huh? But talk about that. Nobody expected us. We weren't supposed to get past Odessa. That was where the season was supposed to come to an end. But it didn't. This team was just resilient, and as you said, I put the capital T in team, because these guys fought for each other.
Yeah, Odessa. That was one team that I mean, it was such a battle with them all year. I remember they had Sebastian Fennell, who was that guy was probably an all-time great Central League, East Coast League guy, if you want to combine it. Like that guy was unbelievable on the ice. And then Joel Martin in net, who was another guy who had like a great career. They had a lot of good guys that when you're looking across, you're like, oh man, like it was going to be tough, but and then playing in that Jack Shack or whatever, and they're throwing carrots at you all the time, and it was a tough place to play. You make the ride out to just an absolute plain of dirt out in Odessa, Texas, and then you got to play those guys. But it was tough, and like I said, I think it was just part of it was like I don't think there was any pressure, but the problem was when we won so many games at that time, then all of a sudden that pressure became off, and then it was almost like, okay, well, you guys are here now, you got to do something with it.
Well, see if you remember this, Witz, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Well, it's okay.
We see if you remember this story. So here it is. I don't remember what playoff game it was, but it was in Odessa, and we board the bus, and we start making our way over to what they call the Jack Shack, as you mentioned earlier. And all of a sudden, one of the players, I think it might have been Fairbarn, that said, "Hey, where's Whitley?" And then somebody said, "Well, where's Soupy Campbell?" And we realized we were on our way to the Jack Shack, and we didn't have either one of our goaltenders on the bus. And I remember Dwight Mullen saying, "Oh, my God, wake up, Whitley." So we called the room. You guys were snoozing still. We turned the bus around. We were probably more than halfway there, had to come back and get you guys. And I remember nobody said a word when they got on the bus. It was just it was like dead silence. Do you remember that day?
I do, and believe it or not, that's not the first time that I ever got like left behind by a hockey team. It's happened more than once. Not proud of it, but yeah, I don't know how that would happen. How not one person would notice that both goalies aren't on the bus, but it was kind of funny. That would have been second year, and that I was there. But it's one of those. It's. Yeah, there's no explanation for it other than I gotta blame my teammates for that one. I'm not gonna take the blame because they should have noticed I wasn't there. So
That's
I'm gonna blame like Nino or like Bruce Graham or one of those guys like that. Like those guys should have noticed. Like they should have noticed. Somebody
should have been counting, right? I mean, that's the one thing you always do before you leave the team hotel. Do we have enough guys? Who took it? Well, of course, back then we didn't have Uber, right? I mean, so. Because now in these days, you got to say, okay, who Ubered over to the rink early? But we didn't have Uber back then. It was just get on the bus and go.
I don't even know if they'd have an Uber in Odessa at this point. So,
anytime you can take a shot at Odessa, it's worth it, right?
I will always take a jab with them. I respected that team big time, but I still got to take a jab with them anytime.
Let's talk about the finals in that series against Rapid City. In all rights, we should have won. We should have been coming home up 2-0. Remember, it was one of those situations where we got out to, an early lead, and give credit to the Rapid City team. They never quit, but there was a good chance we were coming home 2-0, and it just didn't quite work that way. We gave up that game too.
Yeah, we had that opportunity. We gave up a goal late. Remember in game 2, we were already up 1-0. We played an unbelievable first game. The second game, we again another real solid game. And then we gave up a goal. But they had an extra attacker in that game too, and they scored a goal. I remember I was seeing I shot through the point. Got through a few guys, went in, and then they ended up winning in overtime there. But it was that would have been something else. I mean, obviously, if we were up 2-0, we were in a major driver's seat position, and I think obviously the series would have been different. But I can't even say that now. I mean, excuse me. So many athletes now always want to talk about what would have happened if this play or that play. I mean, of course, the series would have been different. Up 2-0, it's a huge situation. Like like I said, you're in the driver's seat. Everything's good. You're coming back home for 3 in a row because it was 2-3-2, and obviously I think it would have been better for us, but it was that was a resilient team, man. That Rapid City, they had a lot of good guys on that team that made it tough. I mean, they were in the finals for a reason, and they were a solid team all around. There wasn't like any weak spots in that lineup, and every guy in that team could do something that could hurt you.
I remember Les Rainey doing a lot of chirping at our guys, and he was buddies with Jarrett Lucan, if I remember right. And that was interesting. But they had a really good team, and you know what? Credit to them. The guy they called Batman in goal. So hey, it is what it is. But as I remember, and let's talk about that final game, that game 6. That was one of the best games I've ever called as far as excitement. I mean, you made so many spectacular saves in that game because they really started taking it to us in the third period. And if it wasn't for you and basically standing on your head, it would have been over in regulation. But as we know, it would go on to double overtime before it was finally settled.
Yeah, I mean, even though we lost, that was still probably like the one game in my like entire career that I'll always remember. So many points throughout it. I remember, we had a 3-goal lead in that game too, and that's something I talk about, like the resiliency of that team. Like they didn't quit. They could have. I mean, we had. It's one of those things. Like we had the lead. I think it was one of those things. We had the lead too early. I think.
Yeah.
Because we had that lead, and then we kind of sat back a little bit for the most part, and they just kept coming in waves, and then eventually they were going to get there. I mean, they got a couple. I think I got a couple later ones in the third period. But I mean, yeah, it was tough. I think for us. I mean, obviously you can change a lot of things when you go back, but I mean, we sat back in that game too much. It was but a lot of teams do that. It wasn't just us that we do it. When you watch like playoff hockey and so many things now, a lot of teams would have done the same thing, and it's a hard thing to get out of. Like, I mean, yeah, you say you want to keep the pressure on like you have all game, but it's that mental thing where you get in there and you get that lead and you're like, okay, we just got to hold on. We got to make sure that we can't let these guys get back in it. But it really is a hard thing to do, especially when you're on the ice. It's easier things said than done, but it was still an unbelievable game. I mean, going to all those overtimes and near chances on both ends, and it's people probably if you're in that building, you probably lost years off your lives with the stress on it.
Do you remember, and it might have been in game 2, that Christian Gaudet took the skate up to the ear, and I tell you what, it looked so nasty. I thought there's no way he's going to come back and play. Not only did he come back and play, he came back in that game. They sewed him up, and he came back in. His ear looked nasty, but that was our team. Our guys weren't quitting. It didn't matter. You can cut off their ear, their fingernail. It doesn't matter. This team was just, they were so determined. And that's what I loved about this team. And they were always together, whether it was, Graham, Whelan, Musatelli. And you remember our tradition, and I'll see how good your memory is for this. You remember every road game where I had a vehicle on the road, we had a little tradition. You remember what that was?
You had to get me a coffee.
Absolutely, buddy. That was it. We had to take Wits for a coffee, and that was always so much fun. And I look back at those teams that we had last year. We had that alumni game. I wish you could have been here for that because it was great to see guys like Justin Bowers return. And Nino couldn't make it because I think they had a wedding or something going on there. But Graham was here, and you name it. The guys from the early teams, even Patrick Lowe-Stevens, our trainer, came back for that. So it was so good to see that group.
Yeah, it would have been nice. It's a little bit tougher where I am. Like, I'm up in Thunder Bay now, so it's a little bit tougher kind of getting around to do some stuff. And I know right at that time, I remember Eric Adams called me, and it was I want to say it was right around the time. It was I had obviously it would have been tough taking some time off work to get down there with teaching, but it would have been nice to see some of those guys. And like you said, Nino probably wasn't there because I think he's got like 8 kids now, and Brucey did it smarter. He did it while he was still at hockey. But no, I know Nino's he got married after hockey and everything. So I know Brucey probably brought his 6 kids too, and everything like that. So to be honest, yeah, it would have been nice seeing you and all those guys again. And I'm sure it was a blast.
Well, last thing for you here. What are you doing now with your life? Because we know teaching was all you told me back when you were playing. After I'm done, I'm gonna be a teacher. What are you doing?
Well, exactly that. I've been teaching up at Thunder Bay pretty much since I stopped playing hockey. I know I graduated before I got to Allen with a teaching degree, and then took a leave of absence from the school board I'm with. And when I came back, I've been teaching ever since. So right now, this last couple of years, I've had a life skills class. I teach special needs kids, and it's a small classroom, but it's a lot of fun. It's a great job, and I'm very very lucky to have it.
When was the last time you put on the pads?
I get asked quite a bit, but I always say whoever you have is probably better than me at this point. Probably 3 years ago, I have a brand new set of gear just sitting in my basement, collecting dust. Basically, it's I get to look at it every time I go by in my basement. It's just makes me cringe that they're being unused. But brand new set of white pads that are just sitting down there, and they should be used. Maybe this year. Maybe, who knows?
Well, I'll tell you what. Hopefully, our paths cross again somewhere down the road, and if that's the case, I'm for sure taking you out and buying you a coffee.
Well, I mean, I think at this point, you could probably buy. Yeah, we could have another beverage instead if you want. But yeah, no, Tommy, thank you very much. I appreciate having me on here. And like I said, you're one of the nicest guys that ever came across Nowlan. For myself, all the guys that I played with, I'm sure everyone after can probably say the exact same thing too.
Well, I still have a set of your gloves that I found after you left, and I held on to those, and they're in my office, displayed very proudly, by the way. Which, thank you very much. We appreciate it. The great Chris Whitley, Thunder Bay, Ontario is where he called home. Now, if you see a Bill McDonald, tell him I said hello.
I definitely will.
All right. Thanks, Witz.